to all of your questions, and you have Melody here to answer all of those that you have. And so initially we thought folks could write out the questions, but we're just going to fill them as we go along. So at this time.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, we were thinking about me speaking for an hour about income, and I said, that's not going to happen. No possible way I could talk for an hour about this. So welcome your questions about income. They have me here to answer questions about other topics in the second hour. So we'll have discussions around anything else you want to talk about aside from income. But hopefully we can cover everything that income has to offer within this hour. Yeah, thanks to all of your input. That's the reason I have 2 hours scheduled here, so watch that on your responses this time. Less of Melody, please. And here's the clicker. So, I think I was going to start with my outline. I'm so well organized. I've had a lot of experience in public housing over the years and project-based Section 8. And I was telling my table earlier today, when I first came to work in the homeless services, I was trying to approach it on that very hardcore level, of monitoring, and have quickly adapted, maybe not as quickly as you all would have liked, but have quickly adapted to understanding, the delicacies kind of the work that you do, and that it's not all black and white and by the book. So hopefully I've learned to be a little bit more accommodating to that as we've gone along our merry way, and can continue to do that within the framework of the regulations that I need to follow, make sure that are being taken care of. So my first slide, I think I have a total of like 4 slides here. Income eligibility, you'll find these printouts in your packet. Basically just defining what the regulations state for each of the programs that you're administering funds for. The 2 variations kind of are home TBA and ESG, which talk about anticipated income. And I think I've been pushing that kind of hard, over the years that you're going to take wherever that income is and anticipate it for the next 12 months for determining eligibility. So that's all this really is just breaking down that. You all know that already. See what I mean? This could go really fast. And the income guidance. The top part is from the regulations from Housing and Urban Development that impact your home TBA and your ESG programs. The other forms of definition of income is comes through the Oregon Administrative Rules for your state funding. So those are the citations where you can find that information if you want to dig down, but I like this OER definition of household income means the total household receipts before taxes from all sources. Income may be reduced by deductions allowed by the department. Income does not include assets or funds over which the applicant has no control. It's kind of, wide open in a sense. I tend to operate more, in that HUD information about getting a little bit more clear on what income is and isn't. I do have some printouts here too of there's exclusions of income, what is considered under HUD to be income and what is excluded from income. And it's a really good roadmap, to help you identify what you're going to be looking at or not. So here, something new. I am introducing the snapshot method of determining annual income for all programs. I've talked to Vicki and Rosaria and Sheila about this. Is this okay? And so going forward, going to take a look at where their income is. I think we talked about this at the last CAA too. What do you do when a person comes into your office and they have lost their job? And their last 30 days of income might have been this employment, but now they have no income. And in trying to refine this, to how you actually do your work and how you're actually stepping up to meet people where they are, that's kind of what this is supposed to represent. That they come in and they don't have income. You probably, if they had just lost their job the week before and now they need help, you probably want to question about unemployment benefits before you just say you have no income right now, especially if you're going to provide longer term assistance. But, yeah, anybody have a question? About this? Yeah.
If you are considering unemployment benefits for somebody, as an example, lost their job a week ago, they won't have even a decision about whether they're getting unemployment that quickly. Sometimes it takes 2 months.
That long?
Oh, yeah. So
It's been a while for me.
Yeah, you can ask them to apply,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we would have no indication for probably a couple months whether they were going to get approved or not.
If there's any
Unless
way.
it's a very clear-cut case. But even
Yeah.
then, it's 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I get it. And 2 or 3 weeks, again, I think that if you're planning on giving them home TA assistance for a year, you'd probably want to take a look at anticipating that income so that they're going to be paying in accordance to their ability to pay rent. So my snapshot method just kind of fell down a little bit there, didn't it?
Honestly, if they're applying for unemployment benefits, the first thing that they'll get is a letter that says how much their potential benefits would be,
Yes,
but it is not a guarantee that they're going to be approved.
yes.
Okay? So if you use that letter to say, Joe's going to get $289 a week in unemployment benefits, and then a month later you find out they're denied, then we've set them up for failure.
Unless you have policies in place that say we can adjust that down. We can re-evaluate your income based on what your actual income is at that point. And I guess it's going to be up to you, because I'm saying I'm going to go along with the snapshot method. And I'm going to hope that you're using federal funds and state funds, mostly federal funds, in a responsible way that's not basing their rent on nothing while they're taking in unemployment income of $392 a week while you're paying all their rent and their utilities.
So what's the
Okay,
snapshot?
excuse me, just a moment, I'll make sure we get to you, but Pete had a question.
Okay.
Can you just put your hand up and I'll make sure we get to you?
Okay.
So this is more about assistance. You know what Trade Act does?
Yeah. A what?
Trade Act. So my wife works for Trade Act just down the road, and what they do, it's a state company, and if any company in Oregon lays off a bunch of their workers due to their moving their operations overseas, Trade Act can then step in and help with funding for training, getting them, assistance for getting development, stuff like that. It's not a lot of people know what Trade Act is and what they do. But that's what they do. If a company, a large or small company lays off their employees due to their moving some of their operations overseas or out of state, that's when Trade Act can step in, and they work very closely with.
Just a moment. I guess we can't hear, so this is.
Oh, sorry. So what Trade Act does is, if a company in Oregon lays off employees due to the fact that they are going to move their operations overseas or out of state, Trade Act can then step in and help and give a lot of assistance with retraining. They work really closely with the employment department. They're right above ResCare, which you have to register when you go for unemployment. So that's what Trade Act does. And I don't think a lot of people realizes or know
The
knows anything
unemployment
about it.
benefits can go hand in hand with
Yes,
job
exactly.
retraining.
Exactly.
But it's only if you lay off a certain percentage or if that,
No,
or if it goes overseas, right?
I think it goes either overseas or out of state. I think that's
But if
mainly
it's just,
overseas.
you know, just a normal guy who's doing construction and say he's laid off in the winter, that might not have, you know,
No.
that.
Because it got hurt,
it's-
so they
it's
decided to
illegal
dump it.
for employees to move
Nobody went
part of
covered.
their operations either out of state if it's cheaper or overseas, then trade actions step in. And
We had a big layoff through HP, and that's what they did, is they moved their operations overseas.
Yes.
And those people got unemployment benefits and training and all kinds of things, and it's fabulous, yeah.
Yep, and I think that probably would have been through trade actions. Because companies, I think they have to report trade actions if they're laying off this many people, so that they start the process of getting packets and information to these workers that are going to be laid off.
So if a person comes into your office and they have just been laid off and you're not sure whether or not they're going to get unemployment benefits or not, and you want to use ESG funds to help them, then you're not, you know, I think through the snapshot method, what I'm saying is you don't have to look at the last 30 days and anticipate what they have earned, that you can, but you still need to kind of take that into consideration. What is, you know, if I'm going to give them 3 months worth of ESG assistance and I'm going to provide, you know, hand-on-hand case management to help move them through an organization like Trade Act or hook them up with wherever we can see to get them plugged back into a job, then that, you know, taking a look at where their income is when they walk in without, that they have no income at that point and basing their assistance on that amount, I'm okay with that as anticipated income. Not looking at, let's see, how do we back up here? Not looking at those past 30 days of income. And I think it's the same thing with HSP. HSP talks about current, am I going the right way? What is a snapshot? So I think what kind of way I'm defining it here is that anticipated annual income can be calculated using verifiable income assets at the time of assessment, which is kind of the HSP definition as far as assessment time. So when they come in and you're doing the assessment, go ahead. Was there another question back there?
Well, okay, so the snapshot method, now we have the slide, so it's anticipated annual income calculated using income assets at time of assessment. So that means on the day of assessment?
Yes.
Not the past 30 days?
Not the past 30 days.
Okay. And then
And to-
you said something about, and
You
this
still
would
wanna
be-
get that
this would be
verification?
instituted across all OHCS housing programs?
Yes.
HA, and is that what you said?
Yeah, yep.
Okay,
You're still
and-
going to want to get those 2 months of income for home TBA because that's a federal regulation, but you're not going to have to base the rent on that. You're not going to have to base the assistance going forward on those 2 months of verifiable income.
Okay.
So you're still going to follow the federal rules, and with ESG, the past 30 days of income. Right? Does that make sense? You're still going to have to follow the federal rules to get that information, but where we're anticipating their income, it's going to be based on where they are at that time of assessment. When you're anticipating the help that you're going to provide.
Okay. Okay, well, and I heard you say something about for a 12-month period. Well, most of our programs we're not carrying people for 12 months.
A lot of people do.
Well, like I'm thinking about EHA or SHAP. I
Right.
mean, a lot of times it's not.
Right.
Sometimes it's.
Yeah, that's
they wait.
definitely-
It is. So anyway, my question was, at what point does a reevaluation have to happen? At maybe 3 months, or like, with some of them, it's not really defined.
That's-
I've been doing monthly after I catch them up, you know, like after the initial point of assistance.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's overkill.
Not across the board. Everybody's usually doing monthly caseworker meetings with their clients.
No, but I mean, are people recalculating? what
No.
people's-
No. But they're meeting with folks, they're seeing how do we move them forward into housing stability usually on a monthly basis. But there's certain programs which you don't have home TBA, but home TBA can have a year contract term. ESG, you can do short, medium-term assistance.
Right, ERA is like that, and then it
ERA.
requires that the participant pay a portion of their income.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
So you
when
can have
that's
internal
reflected.
policies that talk about thresholds that, we're going to bring you in, you don't have income at this time, we're going to put you under a 12-month contract, but we will do interim reevaluations of your portion if your income increases more than $200 a month, $400 a month, whatever you decide. I'm going to monitor to your internal policies. You tell me how you want to handle these things, and I just want to make sure that you're doing it in accordance with how you, if you say, nope, we're just going to help you with a year's worth of rent and use our funds for that, and then work with you along the way to make sure that you're going to be, fully self-sufficient at the end of that period, you can use your funds that way. I'm not here to tell you how to do that, but I do know that coming from my extensive HUD background, that doesn't seem like a real good use of your funds if you're not making any progress. Sometimes folks are going under home TBA for a year based on the fact that they're getting Social Security, waiting to get under Section 8. So or they're disabled, or they have SSI. So you're just kind of you're using your program to bridge that period of time. So a year worth of assistance might be totally reasonable, under those circumstances. Same with the ESG.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just curious what you would recommend for documentation when somebody comes in who has, an example, we lost their job and is now zero income. We're asking for verifiable income. When you're zero income, there really is no verification that you're zero income.
Well, there's usually employment records that I've seen printouts from the employment department showing where people have worked, and if they're not working, I'm not sure if it's that up to date at the time of assessment. The other thing is to verify through their employer. If they don't have a layoff slip, a pink slip, or a letter saying you're not working here anymore, try doing your preferred order of verifications, and as a caseworker, call up that employer and say, does this person work there? No, write that down. And then at that point, you've attempted to verify through caseworker observation whether or not they're working. If you can't do that, then you go to self-certification. But we also want to see that all three of those things have been attempted. That first of all, you tried to get third-party verification, they're no longer employed, and you were unable to do that for these reasons. So you went to caseworker observation, and you called, and the employer says, I can't give you any information. You write that down. Now you're at a self-certification level. So want to see attempts, at getting something concrete. But if you can't do that, then as long as you're documenting those other attempts, that's kind of what I'm asking. So anybody else have questions about this? I think that a lot of you probably do this to some degree, especially with your state funds. Yeah, Courtney.
Question. So maybe, so at what point in time do we document income and resources? At the time of intake or at the time that we actually get ready to spend money? Sometimes there's a 3-month lag. Usually I personally don't enter someone into a program until I'm poised and ready to spend. They've found a place or, or they've got an eviction notice and it's clear cut, but somebody just walks in off the street, they're homeless, they've been homeless for a long time. There's a big, long process that's gonna take to find them housing and get them available, able to keep the housing going. So I wouldn't enter them into the program until such time as they've.
At what point do you consider them assessed? At the time that they walk in the door?
Well, that's what I wondered for your purposes in monitoring,
Yeah.
like.
I can see it being different from every agency, through every agency.
Somebody could like come in and they have no money and they have no resources and they're out there and they don't have a bank account. They get a job or they find a place finally and they're gonna have a HUD voucher. At that point in time, do we get a snapshot of what their bank balance is, or would we go with the bank balance that we got when we first encountered them?
Yeah, go ahead, Vicki.
It starts from the time that you determine that you can help that person, that household, that they're eligible under some program that you have for assistance. And then that eligibility, these are federal rules, that eligibility is good for 6 months. So if within the 6 months they find housing or are given the services that you have told them they will receive,
That's home TBA though.
then you don't have to reevaluate.
That's home TBA, which they don't have any funds for.
What is that?
But do you think, so you're saying that we could use the same
Yes.
process?
Unless you have your own policy for your state funds, or if your continuum has its own policy for the use of our state funds, then you're supposed to go by, first by your continuum policy, and then by your own policy.
I think that's an interesting term to define though, as the assessment. As the assessment whether or not you're walking in and the intake people say, yeah, it looks like you'd be eligible for our programs. Is that the actual assessment, or is it when you bring them in to say, this is how much we can help you with because of, and I think that's probably at that point, that would be the assessment where you sit down and say, what is your income and your assets? We're going to verify this
We're
information.
getting ready to spend money on it.
Yeah. That would be your assessment point. Go ahead, Erica.
Well, so my question is,
Sorry.
oh, sorry.
My question is this going to be clearly outlined in the program manual? Because that's what I always revert back to. And so, like, for example, for Clackamas County Social Services, we don't have home TBA and we don't use we don't have ESG funds for this
So it's all
purpose
state
either.
funds.
And so we only have state funds.
You're
and
probably already doing it this way then.
we're not. We're doing it on a last 30 days income, or if it's more favorable to the person applying, then we'll do like a 3-month look back. But I think even in ERA, I think that the ERA manual has a little bit more specifics. So I guess for me, I'm just saying, I can appreciate everything that you're saying, but if it's not in the manual, then
The next
to
person
me,
that comes around
it's
behind
not-
me might have
yeah.
entirely different, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're in the process of updating manuals at this point. Where's Sheila? Is she still here? So we're in the process of updating manuals, aren't we, Vicki?
Well, to answer Erica's question, her funding from us are just the state funds.
Right.
Right. We don't have a restriction on the state funds. You are supposed to develop your own policy.
Which we do. So if that's in the manual, then that should, like, if that's true, then that should be in the manual. You see what I mean?
And I don't know if it is.
That would be awesome.
But you're not going to make more complicated state funds to spend than they already are, right? You're gonna leave those alone and we're just gonna have to wrestle with ERA and ESG if we're we're lucky enough to.
Well, ERA is not
I mean, because, so I was hoping that you weren't gonna start saying, okay, you know, like ERA, we can catch you up, but now after that, next month, you're gonna pay 30% of your income, and we have to do those assessments on a regular basis, or rent reasonableness comparison, we're not gonna,
Well, ERA does have those.
right,
restrictions.
but DHA is not gonna start having it, right?
No.
Okay.
So what is the definition of income for ERA? I don't think I haven't monitored ERA program yet. It's
Has
on.
to be, less than
Sean?
I don't have it memorized off
Not sure whether I have it in my material here either, but somebody mentioned it, what is it?
It has to be 30% or less of area median income.
And determining eligibility for the programs based on that. In many cases, it has nothing to do with long-term assistance or their ability to pay, it's just their overall eligibility at the time of assessment. But
If we go back to the question of when do we assess somebody, I think we need to assess the person when they come in order for us to be able to help them to find a place. Because if they go by themselves without any guarantee, no landlord is going to give them anything.
Yeah.
So we don't wait until the moment that we're going to help. We enroll them and approve them like months in advance
Yeah.
so we can help to
Yeah.
find a place.
And, you know, under home TBA, that income verification that you might have done at that time of assessment before they actually found a place, that income verification from that assessment will be good for 6 months from that time. It's not specified that way for the other programs. So, it may be, you know, it would be nice if we got all of our manuals with kind of that same language that says, yeah, you know, you can take a look at, they come into your office, they lost their job last week, they have no income right now, they were kicked out, they were, you know, providing living care, kicked out, don't have their job, don't have their home, need some place to, you know, they're homeless at this point, that you're taking that assessment and you're determining, like, okay, this was your past 30 days income, but this is where you are now. We're going to help you out based on that current assessment, and we're going to let that run, you know, wherever you were at that moment for the next 6 months until you find housing. I mean, that's totally, but I think that needs to be in writing from our agency. That needs to be, like Erica says, in our manuals, that we're spelling that out very clearly. But it seems to me like that's where these programs are going, you know, that they're not going to be able to find housing. You know, I've seen Corinne struggle with this. You know, a person comes in and needs help, and there's just no housing out there for them to find. So it all, you know, when we're looking at these stop and start dates, you know, that there's their application date, there's an assessment date, and then we're looking at what their income is at that time of assessment and anticipating that for eligibility purposes and possible long-term assistance.
So Sheila, our expert is back. Sheila
Yay.
Will be looking.
Are we going to get new manuals, Sheila?
Yes, new manual.
Woohoo!
We are still going through the OAR process, which is part of our manual process now. So right now, it's at its legislative review, and that will be done April 18th.
Oh, you turned off.
Pardon me?
You turned off the microphone.
It's off.
Hold it up closer to you now.
Hello?
There you go.
So on April 19th is hopefully when we'll have them posted, barring any comments from the legislative body. So once that comes out definitively for the state manual, which a lot of the requirements that are being pushed out for all the programs is going to come out. And it's had extensive reviews by lots of people. Then we will also do those same kind of updates on the other manuals. And that will also get pushed out at the same time, so April 19th is when we'll see new ones. And then going forward into the next biennium, we will probably begin July 1 in doing any kind of update that we want to see program-wise that will go through the whole OAR process. Everybody will have an opportunity to review, and we'll have public comment periods and all of that. So yes, updates coming very, very shortly. I was hoping to have them before this, but unfortunately.
Sheila puts a lot of work into getting these changes through the what would you call it, the meat grinder, or
It's been a very, very long process.
Yes, it's such a process.
Very, very
So I don't think that we have this language in those manuals, and we're not.
We do.
You have, I think that this is HSP language, because we talked a little bit about that.
In all of them.
Is it along these lines? So I think the real change here is that, especially for home TBA and ESG, that I've been requiring that those past 30 days or 2 months determine what the anticipated income is. And I'm backing off from that and saying that they might have had income for the past 2 months, but the moment they come in your door, they don't have it, then that's the assessment. That's good.
So
Does that help?
the actual language, I can read it. This is the state manual that is coming out. It's still technically in its draft form until we finalize
Awesome.
it. But its income includes the current gross income of all adult household members at the time of assessment.
Yeah.
So, and that language I do believe is going to be repeated through all of the manuals so that we are consistent. That's one of the things that we're trying to do with the manuals is create consistency.
Yeah.
So that a lot of the changes that we pushed out in this will get automatically updated into the other manuals. Does that help?
Yeah. So again, I think the real difference here is under home TBA and ESG. And so moving that so that you can do an assessment and a snapshot of where their income is at the time of that assessment, and then base your assistance on that for eligibility, for level of assistance, for whatever else. Okay, let's see. I think I have one more slide. Falling over. And again, just putting in your handout, how you would anticipate that snapshot of income that is at the time of assessment. So again, going through those calculations. There's lots of different calculations, but if we're all following the same ones, then it gets us through reviews and audits a whole lot easier. So I can clearly see how you were calculating annual income. And it can make a difference, just if you're using 24 weeks instead of 26, it can make a huge difference and might throw somebody that was close to not being eligible or that was actually not eligible into looking like they are eligible for long-term assistance. So that information's in your packet. Eligibility documentation, record keeping, you all know this, third-party verifications, intake, caseworker, manager observations is your second attempt. Third and final is your participant self-certification. And self-certified documentation is only used when documented staff efforts verify that third-party or worker observation documentation is not available. I don't really like that language. I'm not sure where I got that. But. Oh, assets. We still have to talk about assets, which is always a lot of fun. From your advice from our last CCAA convening, we've contacted HUD about providing a waiver to doing any verifications on assets. We haven't heard back from them yet. Or they have verification being a self-certification that their assets are under $5,000. HUD does this for other programs, so I don't know why they can't do it for us, but so we're asking. we're asking for that consideration. And again, this is just going through the requirements that are in our manuals about verifying assets. So assets are going to be items of value that may be turned into cash. I think there's some question here about whether that motorhome that they're living in could be considered an asset, because it's kind of falling under this, where's that other? So that some belongings of value are not considered assets. They are necessary personal property that is not counted as an asset. So in most cases, that's your cars. Your car is a necessary personal belonging. Your furniture, you know, your big screen TV and your Nintendo, and all of those things could be considered just personal belongings. If you're living in a motorhome, maybe that's your personal belonging that's necessary, you know. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure how you go about, you know, spelling that out, you know, in a tenant file so that it's very clear that they're living in this motorhome. They're not using it, you know, for vacation purposes. So assets are, that question, yeah.
So if someone enrolls living in their RV, and then, so we don't count as an asset as personal property, but then we house them, then at that point in time, they could choose to sell the RV or that personal property when it sells more than that 5,000 benchmark. Do we count it then as an asset?
Yeah, I think once you've gone past that assessment period and decided, you know, that you're going to help them for this amount of time, you know, if you're going to recertify them, you might say, do you have, at that point, do you have assets over $5,000, like a checking account or a savings account?
Or if they haven't sold the RV after that 1 year?
Yeah, at that point, it's not really a necessary item.
Yeah, so then we would then count it as their asset. Because I've had people hold on to their RVs because that fear of falling back into the business. And trying to convince them to sell it because it would count against them.
Yeah. You know, and assets really don't count against them. I mean, you might value that RV at, you know, $10,000, and 2% interest on that $10,000 is another $200 in their annual income. So, you know, it's just an exercise that you have to go through, I think, but it won't really affect eligibility or level of assistance.
Well, in the Act 30 home TVA, you could.
It could, a little bit, yeah. But it's, you know, it's a dance. I see you guys out there dancing with new circumstances and what you're being presented with on a regular basis. And I, you know, I think that I'm just saying I'm going to try to meet you there, you know, as you're trying to make that determination. But, you know, but do due diligence, you know, in all of those areas. Again, the calculation to determine the amount of income from an asset is to include in annual income both of the following: the total cash value of the asset and the amount of income those assets are earning or could earn. So again, you take it, you go through a calculation about what it would take to dispose of that asset to determine what its cash value is. It doesn't mean that they have to dispose of that asset, but it's just you're boiling it down to, this is a resource. This is the amount of resource that you have. Any other questions about that? Because that's all I've got. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
What about seasonal employees?
Yeah.
Teachers, crabbers, everybody's got that.
Yeah, everybody's got that. Again, it's going to be that snapshot. You know, they might have been working up till this point and or crabbing or fishing, but when they come in and they present that I'm homeless, then, you know, you're just going to take a look at where they are now. What is your income in this moment that you know, that we're doing this assessment? Is that making sense? You have a puzzle.
I'm just thinking about it because in here it says, 2 months past income.
Yes.
They just got done working.
Yes.
All they had was check stubs
Yes.
from where they've been working. And
Yes.
along the coast, people in restaurants have that issue.
Yes.
Where I go, okay, I just got laid off for the season. And I go, well, you got any pay stubs? If I look at those, they're not accurate of what that individual will be doing in
Yep.
the future. So
Yep.
we-
And
it just-
even though that home TBA regulation says the past 2 months, that I'm saying go ahead and bring that in, you know, verify that you're meeting that federal requirement of getting 2 months of income, but you're still going to,
I'd send out an employment verification to the employer that I know that they were at
Yep.
to verify that they're no longer employed there.
yeah,
And once I have that, then I can go with the 0 income. correct?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, in the past, I said that those 2 months of income are their potential, their anticipated earning potential, you know, into the future. Or that we could take a look at their last year's worth of seasonal work to determine what that might be. And again, it probably depends on the program, you know, that you're providing
That's what I
assistance
say, we
in.
could route them to a different program and not have that
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Corinne?
So my question relates to those programs such as SHAP, EHARR, et cetera, where the person is literally homeless and we still need to document, first of all, income at time of assessment, but also resources. So, and document that it's lacks the
Yep.
resources to get out of the
Yep.
homelessness, right?
Yep.
So say I have a person who's, so I wondered if somewhere it was defined, what does it mean to lack the resources to get out of homelessness?
Oh,
Because you're
gosh.
homeless and maybe you have $2,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
You know, do you lack the resources to get out of homelessness, or do you have enough to get out? And are we supposed to wait to see if there's a gap to fill at the end of it, or how does that work?
Yeah, I don't know. You know,
So
that's,
it's not-
those are
the
the
state
questions
doesn't
you
care.
face all the time because it's not defined.
So you guys don't really care?
No.
Like, we can make that assessment?
No,
you
as
know?
long as you're taking a look at that, because I think under ESG, the requirements are clear that they lack the resources. It's not really mentioned under the state programs.
Well,
It's just under
SHAP, you know, SHAP does ask about that.
lacking resources.
They're homeless, so we don't care about their income, but we do care, but the definition of eligibility relates to being homeless and lacking the resources to
Oh.
get out of homelessness.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your income is. So, you know, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that you can see a person with $2,000 in the bank wanting to go into a shelter.
Yeah,
Or
every once in a while,
Yeah.
you meet somebody, and I made a decision, I don't know, it was an executive decision, I guess, I don't know, this person, they suddenly had $4,000 in the bank, and
Sounds to me like they have resources to
I-
get out
I
of
said-
homelessness.
you know, gosh, I mean, last month you had no money in the bank,
Yeah,
and you did qualify, now you kind of don't look like you have no resources anymore, so I don't know what the state would say,
Yeah.
so is there a possibility you could pay your own security deposit? Well, I guess I will. You know,
Yeah.
so I wasn't sure if that was being fair, or if
Yeah.
that was what the state would expect, or what.
I think
Or
that's,
if I documented the bank statement and showed $4,000 in the bank, would I have been in trouble for helping them?
probably, because they have resources. And I think
Yeah,
that's,
what's the definition of resources?
yeah, but I think that's the idea behind the HUD requirement that you don't have resources. It's not spelled out anywhere, but it's that idea that you're not helping people that have funds or ability to help themselves.
And you're right, it doesn't come up very often.
Yeah.
Somebody's sitting on.
Especially under SHAP, I'm sure. But if a person's coming through town and they break down and they've got $4,000, but they need a hotel for the night, which is, you've ran into that a few times. So,
No, usually.
I'm sure I've looked at
it's not
files.
a bunch of dollars.
yeah, but that's a possibility.
They come in after they've used their money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or they just it could be an emergency situation and they want your help with a hotel room for the night. So,
What about those folks that, you know, they just got their tax refund, $6,800?
they've got resources.
It's in the bank.
Yeah, it's a resource. And I think that, again, that goes back to what was, under ESG, what was HUD's intent by putting that language into the federal regulation? That they want to make sure that you're helping the people that need the help the most.
And just to clarify too, that language is actually written into the definition of unstably housed. So it does apply to EHA, LERC, ERA, and HSB.
That they lack resources?
That they lack resources.
To obtain permanent housing.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction.
Obtain or maintain permanent housing.
Well, am I running over? No? Are okay. Any other questions around that? Yeah.
Based on what they were saying about having some income, some savings, what if the person doesn't want to use their income because they are unemployed, and if they move to an apartment, into an apartment and now they only have $3,000, they're gonna run out of the money, and without employment, so they don't want to use that money.
I don't think that's their choice to use your money or theirs, but if you can, I think that if you can justify that they have other expenses or car payments, or if you could write out something, that says this is why we're going to help them despite the fact that they've got all this money, because they're going to need that money for something else, or we can only help them for 1 month. We don't want to drain all of, their resources. It's okay for them to have resources. But we're getting down to those decisions that you're having to make on a regular basis, whether or not, their resources would exempt them from receiving your assistance based on our definitions that they don't have resources to help them get permanent housing.
Okay,
So all of those things weaving together, right? Those are the decisions all of you make on a regular basis as people come in with their unique circumstances, and how do you weave the story, that says this is why we're helping you.
So it is okay for them to have some resources if you can justify it. Why
Yeah.
not?
I guess so. Again, I don't want to see people with $3,000 having to go out and use that all up before they show up in your office. As I say that, I'm kind of cringing too, because I think it kind of flies in the face of what our manual states. What do you guys think? What do you think, Vicki? Go ahead, Peggy.
I was just going to say, I always encourage my staff to think of what it looks like on the front page of the paper.
Yeah.
So how much flack is your agency going to get if you help this individual and all of the facts of the story were to come out? And, what's the comments going to be in the community?
Yeah.
And then as somebody else at our table was commenting on, that if you have $2,000 and we help you get into a dwelling of some sort, just because you had $2,000, you're not going to qualify independently with that landlord. That landlord's not going to say, oh yeah, sure, come on in.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there you have both
That,
sides of
that,
the
that's
coin.
all you got is 2,000. Sure, come in. We'll sign you up on a 6-month lease. Yeah.
Right.
So I'll try to, I'll offer this thought, and people can add to it or correct me. I mean, the goal and the intention of, certainly from the ERA and I would say the other state funds, and probably federal funds, the intent is permanent housing. And these are very complex situations that you work with. And so you do have to find that balance of, expecting the person to contribute to their own well-being and their own process for obtaining permanent housing with what resources they have. And you're gonna have to engage in those conversations to figure out, what their contribution is and what it can't be in what areas, so what resources you need to use to assist them towards obtaining permanent housing. It's impossible really for us to be able to draw hard lines for you.
Yeah.
One, because we don't want to hamstring you to where you can't help somebody because we've got some hard, clear definition that doesn't fit the flexibility of what you need it to. And so I would just suggest that you try to keep that intention in mind of, how do we weave these resources together with the goal of permanent housing being, the goal. So it's not sort of a question of, is this person going to be able to pay their rent for, a month or two? Sure, but then they're out on the street again. That's not really towards the goal of permanent housing. So figuring out how you're gonna stitch those resources together over the longer term is really the question and at hand. And we want to empower you guys to be able to make those decisions and help people the way they need to be helped.
Yeah, well said. What he said. You know, and I don't think in the past I've really been that supportive of that, you know, method. I've been more in that ESG, federal, you know, this is what their income is and you have to do these things. So we're still going to follow the federal requirements, but behind that, we're saying take a real look at where they are and how you move them beyond the situation that they're in. You know, how are you going to stabilize them, move them towards permanent housing? I think that's what our sense with the changes that we're making and on the state level is going. And leaving that kind of up to you, maybe with a few like dings from me every now and then. Who knows? You know, but it's not that critical if you're helping people and they're income eligible and you're calculating it correctly. Corinne? That?
I just want to say that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. Again, thank you guys. I mean, you're down there trying to figure this out on a regular basis. So. I'm going to be there with you. Any other questions? Look, it's not everybody's favorite topic. It's just, we're not going to talk about this again for a while. Right?
It actually is kind of a break.
Okay. Glad to hear.
So why don't